Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to sitting down with Ray Redmond, who was my trainer at Equinox when gyms were open. Ray, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too,
John. So, Ray, I'm looking forward to talking to you because I think, people were so excited that the gyms were about to open, at least here in Michigan, and I know other places around the country, and they are still closed. And I think, people are trying to figure out, what can they do to work out. And so I wanted to have you on the show to just kind of talk about, what are some at-home workouts? How should people be eating? Just kind of give kind of a quick overview, and then we'll jump in and dive into just kind of everything health.
Sure. So the beauty of exercising and maintaining a healthy body weight is that you don't need fancy equipment to do so. I typically always ask people when I first sit down with them is what is your overall objective? What are you trying to look like? If health is your overall objective, well, for men, that's anywhere from 10 to 20% body fat. For females, it's typically 20 to 30% body fat. Now, at 15% body fat, you're not going to have shredded abs, but it's a trade-off, right? So if you just want to be healthy and look good and feel good, you don't have to have crazy expensive equipment. You just have to have some kind of form of physical activity, a sustainable, well-balanced nutritional plan. And the third aspect that a lot of people I find are probably really hurting the most is sleep. I was just reading about a study the other day that tracked the sleeping patterns of people over a 6-year period.
Yeah.
And people who received less than 6 hours of sleep gained twice as much weight throughout that time period as the people who got 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So, one of the easiest, yet for a lot of people is actually really difficult habits to really focus on is sleep. And just by sleeping more, you're already setting yourself up for a better weight loss, or you're setting yourself up for better weight loss goals than you are going to be if you're not getting that sleep. So that's huge.
And so let's talk about that. So, I think, people's schedules are a little skewed right now. Mm-hmm. So we got the workout plan, the nutritional plan, and the sleep, right? Those are kind of the three pillars.
Three pillars.
So let's start with sleep, because I've read a bunch of studies on sleep, and Ariana Huffington has a book on sleep. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but really, we've been a country of, moving at such a fast pace. In a way, quarantine slowed a lot of us down. Mm-hmm. And so how do people even fit sleep into their schedule?
So it's all about time management.
Yeah. Now you're speaking my language.
Right. That's maybe where you give Jon Dwoskin a call and see if he can help you there. Absolutely, John. You got to look at what you're doing in a day. I had a client who I was just helping with this, and she happened to have a smartphone that told her how much time she spends on different social media platforms. And we looked at it, and she was spending over 3 hours a day on average, on different social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook. While some of that was for promoting her business, she was able to admit that typically after dinner, she'll sit down and she'll hop on her phone and kind of scroll around and watch the news. And I asked her, are you willing to maybe sacrifice an hour of that? She was getting about 6 hours of sleep to get her past that threshold to where, studies show she's going to set herself up for better weight loss. And she was able to, to do so. So a lot of it's just looking at, your day, from a day-to-day standpoint, and are there certain, most people have it, even me, I'm a pretty busy person, but most people have certain times where they are, not necessarily wasting time, but there's time that could be better spent towards allocating towards sleep. So it's just a matter of looking at your schedule on a weekly basis and where can I make a couple changes here and there to sneak an extra hour or two. You don't need a lot. That same study also showed that too much sleep actually led to the same results as not enough sleep. So the sweet spot's kind of 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah, 7 to 8 hours worth of sleep. I love it. So let's talk about, I don't want to be too fixated on weight, because I think sometimes people get so, I want to lose 15 pounds, but there's fat, there's muscle, sometimes your body, right? And so just kind of moving away from the idea of, just looking at your weight, what other areas do people need to look at when it just is about being healthy, right? Being healthy. I know there's BMI, there's weight, there's percentage of fat, but how should people be looking at it so they're not just driving themselves crazy by, what a scale says versus how they feel?
So I tell you what, a scale, I always tell people, I could fly to the moon and weigh in a day or however long it takes to get there. You're going to instantly lose weight, right? Because weight is just it's just a measurement. It doesn't really tell you, like you were alluding to, what is your body composition? And even on top of that, weight fluctuates daily, depending on what you ate, what time of day you're weighing. The best indicator, if you are going to weigh yourself every day, which I'm not necessarily a big fan of for reasons that you spoke of, you almost want to weigh every day and take an average because of that fluctuation.
Yeah.
But there's so many other forms of measurement. For circumference is a great form of measurement, which is less likely to fluctuate like you will see in weight from just your typical scale. Anyone who stops into Equinox, we have our in-body, which is bioelectrical impedance. It'll actually measure your different masses. So, we'll be able to see what percent of your body weight is fat, what percent of your body weight's muscle, skeletal, and that gives us a good gauge too. But even that is not without flaw. Different times of day, different digestion states, hydration levels will all affect that too. So you have to realize these machines do have a certain element of error to them, and it's best to actually use multiple forms of measurement. But also just going by how you feel. One of the first things you'll realize when you embark on a new fitness program is just your energy levels. You're going to feel better. You're going to sleep better. And that's almost instantaneous. Your first few weeks to a month of your program, you are going to lose weight, but it's not going to be as fast as what some people lead you to believe. What you will notice is you are going to actually feel a lot better right off the bat. Your energy levels will feel better, and you're going to feel a lot stronger. Most of your adaptations are going to be neuromuscular. And then once you get those neuromuscular adaptations, then we start to see the physiological, the really good things. We start to see our muscles become more defined and grow a little bit, and our body fat go down. Men especially, one of my favorite forms of measurement is just your belt buckle. Most men tend to store their weight right in their stomach area. And when I say weight, I'm talking fat. But when you're going down in your belt buckle loop or your belt buckle notches, and your weight might not necessarily be going down on the scale, that's actually a good thing. That means you're gaining muscle mass and you're losing fat in your midsection, which, we don't want fat there. We don't want a lot of fat anywhere, but especially in that area, can pose dangers. So having multiple forms of measurement and just going by how you feel too are some of the best ways to track your progress.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said about, weighing yourself every day. Is you're not an advocate of what, once a week, twice a week. What's your formula?
I like a different form of measurement because you do want to measure because you do want to make sure you're making progress towards your goal. So I'm not saying don't measure, but I like different forms of measurement. So maybe one week you check your circumference of your abdominal region. Maybe the next week you step on the scale, and the week after that you use some skin fold calipers if you have access to that, or those little scales don't cost too much. You can get one. I have one in my bathroom that uses bioelectrical impedance, and I think it was like $30-$40, and it's relatively accurate. So having multiple forms of measurement are great because those will allow you to see steady progress, but you're not measuring so frequently that you see the fluctuations in the machine. Yeah,
I love it. All right, so now let's talk nutritional plan. How much of getting in shape is eating versus working out?
Oh, it's extremely important. You've probably heard a lot of people say it's 80% diet, 20% exercise.
Yeah.
I like that saying because it definitely establishes the importance of nutrition. But I like to think of it more as it's 100% diet, 100% nutrition, and 100% in that you're really focusing on both, but in moderation. So one thing that a lot of my clients and people who get to know me when it comes to when I'm setting up plans for them is I don't use sexy terms like 6 weeks to abs and stuff like that, because I like sustainable plans. Because when you have a sustainable plan, that's something you're going to stick to. Any person can write a meal plan. You always hear a lot about meal plans. Anyone could write a meal plan that's going to have you consume less calories than what you need a day, which is going to get you to lose weight. But the fact of the matter is, are you going to continue to follow that plan once you reach your goal? Most people don't. We see that by the numbers today. 70% of people are overweight. So when you learn the habits, for instance, stop eating when you're 80% full is one of the most important habits you can learn. And in focusing on protein, now we're starting to learn the habits that lead to sustainable weight loss. So you don't just lose your weight, you keep that weight off. Because what no trainer, no person wants to go through is losing a whole bunch of weight and then gain it back, and then lose it and gain it back. So then we get to that process of yo-yo dieting, which isn't a fun process to be involved in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love how you're talking about the habits. That's a huge number. 77% of people are overweight. And I think, just even shifting the mindset of stop eating when you're 80% full. That's not really, what are your, how does someone do that? I mean, I have a hard time with that when I'm, 80% full, 90% full.
Mm-hmm.
If the food's really good, I keep going. So how do you build that habit as a trainer? How are you recommending to your clients that they build that habit?
So you first have to know what it feels like, because most people, and especially most people who are working, we're busy. And I mean, you want to see a fast eater, look at a trainer when they got 10 minutes in between a client, they're scarfing down food like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue a lot of us run into is we're typically eating and we're in front of something that's instilling this habit. So for instance, I might be in a Zoom meeting and I might be snacking on my food real quickly because I have a client, I don't have time to eat. So it's the only time that I have to eat. Well, what happens is we tend to associate eating with electronics. A lot of times we sit down and watch TV. We're not really hungry, but we're eating because it's become a habit.
Yeah.
And you have to really learn to realize, A, are you actually hungry? Or B, are you just bored? Or you eat because it's a habit? That's one pitfall a lot of people fall into. But back to your question, 80% full is kind of it's something that people have to learn to feel. And the best way to learn to do it is to time how long you are typically eating. Let's say I at each lunch, I sit down, I hit my timer on my phone, I time it. And it's 15 minutes is my average. Well, add about 5 minutes to that and try to take your time chewing slower and actually taking the whole time to eat. So we're going to shoot for 20 minutes. And what you're going to notice when you increase the time that you spend eating, you're going to start to notice those cues from our body telling us that, hey, we're pretty full right now. And 80% full is basically, we're not 100% full and satisfied. We could probably eat a little bit more, but we're comfortable. That's kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's that little happy place to where we're not having to undo our belt buckle a notch. We're comfortable. We could go do some physical activity and we're not so full from eating that we could still partake in activity of some type.
I love it.
Just leaving a little bit left in the tank.
All right, good. That's good stuff, Ray. And so now let's talk about at-home workouts, right? Mm-hmm. So gyms are closed. We talked a little bit about this before we went on air, that it's really difficult to even find gym equipment today. And so what are some workouts that people can do while they're at home and the gyms are closed?
Now, my number one favorite tool, if you can get your hands on it, is a kettlebell. I love kettlebells. At my place of work, most people kind of know me as a kettlebell guy. In fact, I typically 3 to 4 months out of the year, my two passions are Olympic weightlifting, strength and conditioning, and kettlebell training. I'll typically take a good 3 to 4 months off of my heavier barbell training and just spend a lot of time doing strictly kettlebell workouts. And the reason why I like doing those is, A, they're very good for conditioning, and B, they're very versatile. So if you can get your hands on a kettlebell, typically for men, I like to see around 24 to 20 kilos. Women usually about 12 to 14 kilograms. If you can get yourself one of those, I could write you an endless list of workouts that would keep you busy for a long time and keep you in very good shape.
Okay. And so there's kettlebells, and what else? I mean, I know I've talked to a lot of people who say, I don't have a gym, so I've been walking a lot. I don't have a gym, so I've been biking a lot. Mm-hmm. So what else? What outside of kettlebells? Are there circuit trainings that they can do at home? Like walk for 5 minutes, do 10 jumping jacks, do 5 push-ups. Like what are some routines like that?
Absolutely. So body weight. Everyone has their body that they can use, and body weight training is often overlooked, and it can be made more difficult through different tactics like tempo training. So, if you're someone who can knock out 40, 50 push-ups, no problem. Well, what I'll typically have that person do is slow that motion down. Now we're increasing time under tension, and we're changing the variables of the exercise, making it more difficult. We might switch to a hand release push-up. Body weight squats, we can do the same thing. We can slow the tempo down. We can also do different aspects like plyos. I can have people do jumping squats. There's different variables that you can play with that can increase the intensity of the exercise, or just look at the density of your workout. So, one of my favorite routines is 10 squats, 10 push-ups, and a 30-second plank. And what we do is I have one of my clients, I'll have them just follow that workout and time how long it took you to complete that workout, right? Well, then what I'm going to have that person do is try to slowly cut down on the time that it takes them to complete that workout. And what we're doing is we're increasing the density of that workout. We're reducing those rest periods, thus making the workout harder. So there's all different variables you can play with: rest periods, tempo, plyometrics that we can modify to really change the program.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about stress for a minute. There is, I would say, an increased level of stress in today's COVID world. People can't get to the gym. Kids are not going away for the summers. The kids are coming off of being homeschooled. We don't know what the fall is going to bring. And so I find, I'm kind of on a plan right now, but there was a lot of just stress eating and just being kind of restless and just at home, right? You're with your kids, so you're making more cookies and eating them more. And so what do you do in real time in the moment when it comes to, just dealing with stress and wanting to, toss out the nutritional plan for the day or the week?
So there's a couple routes you can take.
Yeah, no, just what's a way to get back to center so you can.
So the best way to get back to your baseline is have a fallback plan. Okay. So rule number one is if it's in your house, it's a matter of time before you eat it. I call these red light foods. For me, it's those Reese's peanut butter cups. If those are in my house, John, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that willpower hits a point where it breaks, and I'm face deep in 5 of those things. So step number one is just to try to keep that stuff out of your house. And if it's not in your house, I'm probably not going to go drive to Kroger and get it unless I'm really that desperate for it, which probably won't be the case. But let's say you have some kids who like to have some candy around, right?
Yeah.
And, you don't want to take certain foods out of your house because of the fact that you don't want to take away from your kids. Well, the best option in that case is to have a fallback plan. So maybe you just focus on the next best step. So, if you're someone who typically binges, what I typically would tell that person to do is take about 5 minutes and just sit and relax. And what you'll probably find out at the end of that 5-minute period is you really don't want to eat that peanut butter cup. And if you do, you might not eat as much as you thought you were going to. You just realize that, I'm just stressed out right now. And after that 5-minute period, maybe do some meditation, maybe do a couple sets of push-ups, something that's going to help push you towards your goal. 7-8 times out of 10, you're probably not going to go for those that whatever that trigger food may be. Now, you know what? Then you might hit that point too, where you do decide that, I am going to go and I am going to have some of those. And you know what? That's okay as long as you took your time to relax and make a conscious decision. Too often I see people who will, they'll have one bad binge session or one bad meal, and they feel like they've completely derailed all their progress. Well, it doesn't work like that. Another really, really interesting study, it looked at the consistency of habits and the results of the goals achieved. And people who were anywhere from 10 to 49% consistent with the habits still lost 11 pounds of body fat. The people who were 100% compliant, 90 to 100%, lost 19. So, what you have to realize is even if you're not 100% compliant to your goal and you have one bad meal, maybe you have a bad weekend, right, just make your next meal as good as possible, and you're going to still see results. It's a process.
Yeah, that's great. That's great stats. Those are great studies, and I agree with you. I think habits are so important, and it's always good to. I always like hearing a stat to back up a habit, but I love the idea of just being conscious, right? So I find, at least sometimes when I'm overeating or eating candy, I'm not even consciously eating it. It's just like there, and I move into this space of eating, not consciously. And so I love how you talked about just kind of taking 5 minutes, maybe doing, whether you're meditating, do 5 push-ups, but just by the time you get to the food, be conscious about it. I had a holistic doctor who shared with me many, many years ago that if you're consciously eating food and you're not eating it with, out of stress, anxiety, triggers, this, then the other, then it even, it gets digested differently, almost just the energy of it, right? Whether that's fact or fiction, I don't know, but I think there's some truth to just the consciousness of it.
It's a choice, right? You make the choice. Right. You're in control.
Yeah, no. I love that. All right, good. So these 3 pillars are really important, I think, regardless of if we're in COVID, gyms are open, gyms are closed. I mean, you've shared some really great things about sleep, nutrition, and working out. Talk about just the consistency of working out. Is it once a day for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a couple of days a week? Like, what's a healthy routine for people to get into, for their heart, for their bodies, for their mind?
Awesome questions. So the first thing you have to look at is what is your overall goal? Okay, because if you're someone who's trying to get to 8% body fat, your workout plan is going to look a lot different than someone who just wants to be in that healthy range, that 10 to 20% body fat for men and 20 to 30 for women. So, if you're just trying to be in that range to where, and a lot of people in that range look really good still, you look great. Your workouts don't have to be anything too crazy, 3 to 5 times a week. You don't necessarily have to break a sweat really even to get to that healthy range, provided your nutritional habits are in line as well. Now, when you're trying to get below that, for men, that 13, 15% mark, well, now we're looking at breaking a little bit more of a sweat, a little bit more intense workouts, 2 to 3 times a week, followed by, 1 or 2 times a week, some active recovery, walking, some light cardio, hitting your Peloton, stuff like that. But if you can consistently, what I'll tell you is if I can have a client who's going to be consistent twice a week and never miss versus someone who, let's say they hit it 6 times a week, 1 week, they miss a week, they come back 7 times and they hit it once a week after that, I'll take that consistent person any day when it comes to achieving the results quicker. And the other big important aspect to look at too, and I use myself as an example, I typically train pretty intense because I like to, but even trainers get into a rut. And it happened to me after I got back from the Upper Peninsula doing some backpacking up there. I came back and I just did not feel like working out. I was on a very intense program prior, and I always go back to one of my favorite fallback routines, which is it's with a kettlebell. It's 10 kettlebell swings, 10 goblet squats, 10 push-ups. Then you go down 999, 888. Takes you typically about 12 to 20 minutes. And after about a week or 2 of those, I typically get my drive back. But what's important is keeping that habit. It's short, little manageable workouts. They're reasonable, they're repeatable, but they allow me to keep those habits, because when you lose that habit, that's where you really start to see consistency being lost. So, my best advice is find out what is your overall objective. You just want to be healthy. Well, that's not too hard. Or B, are we trying to really, dial in that body fat? Well, now we're going to have to get a little bit more of a strict plan. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to being consistent.
Yeah, I love that consistency. And with consistency, I want to move in with accountability. Having an accountability partner, at least as I'm coaching people, is so big. And so what makes the ideal accountability partner for just keeping on page with your health, right? Let's just, eating, weight, sleep, etc. What are your thoughts on accountability?
So, no matter what anyone's ever trying to do, whether, if you're, I always believe in having a coach of some type, whether it be a financial advisor or someone like you, John, it always helps to have a coach of some type. And that can look different depending on your abilities, your accountability and stuff like that. Some people just need someone to check into once a month. Those people typically have someone who's writing a program for them. And they're emailing their stats, they're checking in, and the trainer or the coach is typically dictating what the workout's going to look like and periodizing their program for continual progression. You want to keep progressing that person. Now, people who tend to have more accountability issues, you're going to either have to have a good buddy who loves to work out, who's going to keep you on track, or like I said, hire a coach. Yeah. When you're trying to lose weight, it's not necessarily a hard process in theory, but in practice, it can be pretty difficult. If you just look at the statistics, it's a lot of people are having a hard time with it. And it's when you have a coach help you throughout the process, it's amazing how much more your adherence is going to be to that program. And just having someone guide you. I myself, this shocks a lot of people. I have someone who writes my programs for me every week. And I'm a trainer. I've been doing this for a long time, but at the end of the day, I coach so many people. Even me as a trainer, I always fall back into a lot of issues a lot of other people fall into. I typically do stuff I want to do. I'm going to hit my curls, my bench press. I might neglect my core. I don't like doing core work. When I'm following a program, it's going to force me to do things that I might not want to do, but I need to do. Yeah.
No, well said. Well said. All right, good. I love what you're talking about right now. So now my last couple questions for you, Ray. the world is much different than it was a few months ago. And there's a lot of kids who just recently graduated college. And so what would your advice be to them today as far as, picking a career, following their passions, and just, now that, the world is just a little bit different?
So my number one advice is find someone who's already doing what you want to do and shadow them. Get as much experience as you can with someone who is in the field that you potentially want to follow, because there's nothing that can replace hands-on interactions with someone in that field. And my degree from GVSU is actually a pre-physical therapy degree, and I really thought that's what I wanted to do until I started shadowing it. And I realized that's not really quite the route I wanted to go, and I kind of went more towards the gym route and more in the personal training. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't start shadowing people. So you got to get hands-on experience with people and make some connections along the way. It never hurts to know people, and the more people you know, the better off it's going to be when you do get your degree finally. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think the power of mentorship and hands-on experience is key. It's the only way you get to know if you really, really love something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Ray, I appreciate you being on the show. How can people get a hold of you?
So you can reach me at Raymond.Redmond at pt.equinox.com. If you're in the Equinox area, feel free to stop by and say hi. If you're outside of the Equinox area, you can reach me at redmondra@mail.gbsu.edu. Otherwise, I'm always active on my social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, trainer Ray Redmond. Feel free to reach out to me on there. I'm always posting different workouts, different tips and tricks, and also maybe a couple fish that I catch too. So I'm always more than happy to help. And I love talking fitness and nutrition with people.
It's great. It's great. Well, Ray, I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing information about sleep, nutrition, and working out, especially during this time at home. So thanks so much for everything that you've shared and for everything you've done for me. I appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, reach out to Ray. He's a great trainer. I know you can't do Equinox right this second as we sit here, but when it's open, I know you're open for business and all of that.
Absolutely.
Stuff. So thanks, Ray. I appreciate it. This was great stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Great to be on the show.